Welcome to Sonographers in the Cities, where we connect through sound with your hosts, Lynn and Geselle. Hi, SITC fam. Welcome back to another episode of Sonographers in the Cities. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Geselle.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. And if you've been listening to our podcast for other episodes, thank you so much. We hope that our podcast, our information, our episodes have been helpful for you in your journey.
Yes, thank you so much for listening, for coming here and joining us, whether it be on YouTube or on whatever podcast platform you listen on. And we just appreciate the support we get from you guys. Lynn and I, we're just some random sonographers on this planet Earth that just want to share awareness about ultrasound. And you guys are here making this happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you to those who have reached out to us. We will get to your messages, your emails very soon. It's just that we've been very, very busy, and we've been kind of swamped with life and work and trying to find, for this recording, it was a struggle for us to find time to record because we just had to postpone day after day, and we finally made it. So thank you to all of you who have supported us since the beginning to now. If you're new, thank you. And thank you to Geselle for making the time to do this with me.
Thank you, Lynn. No, I appreciate you because, as you guys know, in this healthcare field or life in general, we get really busy. Lynn and I are both very busy people in general. And it's hard to, I guess you could say, keep up with social media when you have a job, a full-time job at that. Before, when I was per diem, I was able to finagle a little bit and get my schedules here and there and be able to record a lot of videos. But when you're on a full-time job, or even Lynn now, she was a full-time student, now she's a full-time, sonographer, it's a lot different to be in the field actually working because we get tired. There's a lot of other things in life that pull us from social media and from this, but we still do our best to come together and talk to you guys about ultrasound. So, that's something you guys are going to look forward to doing when you get a job after you graduate. You're going to have to manage your time, just like managing your time in school. Same exact thing. Just now, Lynn's making money.
Yes. It's just a little bit better than when you're in school because, you get paid for the stress that you're getting.
Yeah. Well, let's give them a little update because obviously this episode today, we're going to be talking about, is it easy to be a sonographer, or is it actually, not as stressful as, some may say, or some of those TikToks out there that say, hey, becoming an ultrasound tech is easy, or this job is not stressful at all. So we're going to talk about the hardships of being a sonographer today. But it's going to be a little bit all over the place because Lynn and I have been, going through a lot in our personal lives. So we're just catching up a little bit. We're going to update you guys a little bit on that for those of you who are interested. But we are definitely going to talk about, is being a sonographer easy? Because a lot of people go into this field curious or questioning and thinking it's an easy job. So
that is easy money.
Yeah, easy money.
That it's, it's an easy path to get from point A to point B. And it's was it low stress with high earning potential?
Yeah. And I kind of like the majority of videos that you see out there from people who are posting about it, or on Google, right? A lot of times if you search ultrasound, people are going to say it's the least stressful job of 20 17 or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, everyone's always curious who they're asking, which we've had this conversation before on some of the episodes, but we're going to do a little deep dive on that. So before we get into that, Lynn, how are you?
I am good now that I'm talking to you.
Yay.
Yeah, talking to yourself always make me happy, even when
Aw.
like my days are like stressful or have like tough patients or dealing with my current work environment. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, I recently posted like toxic work environment or like how work environment can negatively affect your work life as a sonographer, because I
Mhm,
got a lot of questions for that, because I did another post which I mentioned in the previous episodes, the expectation and the realities of as a new grad sonographer. So recently, like at work, I've been getting really stressed because of, as a new grad, there's a lot for you to learn. And then you have to learn the operations of the workplace. And then there's already ongoing toxic behaviors. That happens everywhere in the workplace. So you just have to learn to, you know, acknowledge it, not avoid it, but, kind of just don't mind it and be in your own space. So that's like taking its toll on me, because every time I go home, as much as I love sonography, that feeling makes me want to, like, the feeling of checking out, like you
mm,
checked out of sonography. And I don't ever want to do that because I love it. And that's why I have my page. That's why I talk to Geselle. That's why we have this podcast, because this is a space where we talk about the things that we love, which is ultrasound. So circle back. This is why I'm like, really appreciate that we have this podcast, Giselle, because it allows me to rediscover that love for sonography, if that makes
right.
sense.
hmm Yeah.
Because currently sometimes I'm not feeling it because of my current workplace.
Right. No, I 100% agree. And Lynn knows, like, we've had conversations before. And if you guys are in the same boat or having, this sort of wave of
Mhm.
feeling like I love this, or then sometimes you're having a very hard day. You have those days as students as well. But when you go into the field and the job, it's a little bit more pressure because now you're on your own, and I was telling Lynn, like, it's very scary to be in that situation because she is a new grad, and it can get overwhelming. So I'm glad that we do have these
Yeah.
conversations and open, raw, real ones, because sometimes new grads think it's bad to have that feeling, and it's really not. I'm a technologist of doing this for 6 years now, and I still feel that way. Um, in the last few weeks, I've actually had a really hard time uh, balancing my brain with my work because it's just so busy. And then also my outside life, personal life is also very busy. So it can get really overwhelming and stressful. And we always tell you guys to separate, work life from personal life, but it's always hard to do that when they intertwine, or
Hmm.
when you have something going on at home, you go to work, you're trying to ignore that, but it's also stressful at work. So this kind of ties into, is it easy to be a sonographer? And really, in general, any healthcare field or any job, because it can get tough, especially with that work environment, yes. And even though I love it so much, and Lynn loves it so much, like, you can love your job so much, that makes it easier for you to get through your job, but it still doesn't mean it's not hard.
Yeah.
And we talk about hardships being multiple different things. It can be from not just your work environment, but the types of patients that you get. Um,
Yeah.
if you're working in an ICU setting, you see a lot of patients who are sick, ventilated, um, at the worst parts of their life, and you have to deal with that. As a sonographer, you have to see that happening if you're in a hospital setting. Sometimes you have to see things before the patient even knows what's happening. Like we can tell first on, like, what's going on with the patient, and we can't even tell the patient, right? Because we're not a doctor. So a lot of things all together makes this job hard in general because you can already be having kind of a hard day personally, but then either your workplace is really hard to work in or the situation with your patient is very hard to work in. You're kind of breaking your back or your body in different positions trying to get the best images for your patients because you're doing your job and you're trying to be the best sonographer you can be. But then work related musculoskeletal injuries, like that makes it hard to be a sonographer. So there's just so many different things that can make this job difficult and hard, especially now with how busy the hospital settings are. I don't know about you, Lynn, but our hospital is like so busy, and then everyone's like so understaffed. And I know a lot of people are feeling that. Are you guys feeling that too over there?
Definitely. Like we get a full schedule plus requests for add-ons and stats orders. Not as much as you because obviously your department is different than ours, but when you message me, you're getting 100 orders like a
Yeah.
day. I was like,
Yeah.
how do you do it?
Yeah.
And I mean, for us, it's like the same thing, like the trend of increased demands
Mhm.
for ultrasound is going up there. That means
Going
like
up.
like we need to produce more of sonographers to be able
Right.
to catch up.
Yeah.
So, because right now we're just like here, and then it's like this, orders are like this, and then we're just like slowly like that.
Yeah.
So and everywhere's hiring.
Right. Everywhere's hiring, which y'all, like, if you are going into this field, don't give up because there are
Yes.
jobs. There are jobs out there. If this is something you really want to do, like, yes, it is hard, but it is worthwhile. We tell people that all the time because we love what we do.
Mhm.
It would make it a little bit easier if there were more of us out there, right? There's more
Yes.
patients than there are to sonographers, for sure. And I think about people in Canada, for example, like it, they, my sister's fiance, like he was needing an ultrasound on his leg, and it took months, 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 and months just for him to get an outpatient ultrasound. And I'm like, here, it's the same thing. It doesn't take as many months as maybe Canada, but it is like I talk to patients all the time. They say, I can't even get into my doctor's office. I can't even get a
Mhm.
referral. And a lot of people are flock into the ERs because they can't see their primary or their specialist. They can't get in. So now the
Yeah.
ER is getting blown up because people can't see their primary care doctor right away. And the only way they can get seen is to go into the ER. And then it gets busy over there. And I
And
don't
they
know,
still have
it's
to
a
wait
cycle.
in the ER.
Yeah, it's a cycle, right?
Yes.
Um, but being a sonographer, like, yeah, it's great because you're going to have that job security.
Mhm.
Um, and it's, we need a lot of people who actually want to work and want to do the job right. There's a lot of people out there who think they can come in here and just like, I don't know, like get through the classes and like just go on by. I don't know. It's
Do
really
the
hard.
minimum.
Yeah, like do the minimum. Because it is really hard. Schooling is hard. You can ask any
Yes,
student that the schooling is tough, you know, and that's what we talk about.
definitely.
Mhm.
Yes. I think that's what we talked about the most on this podcast because a lot of you who are listening to the podcast are students,
Mhm.
and school is hard. it's challenging. And then when you enter the workforce, it's also hard. It's also challenging. The only good side is you get paid for it. And, like once you get a job and you want to pursue like a specialty or get specialized in a certain concentration, then you look for another opportunity. So it just like adds on and on and on, because you do want to grow. You do want to be a better sonographer as time goes on. So it's not just you go to school and then you finish and then you work and you just scan all day. Like you go to school, you work, and then you learn, and then you work, and then you learn, and then you work. So it's just like continuing education. There we go.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. That's
Like
what we advocate for.
Right. You're like continually learning. Like there are sonographers
Always.
like who've worked in 20 plus years and they're still learning new
Yes,
things.
exactly.
Mhm.
And the field is constantly changing and growing with technology that is improving. So you never know. Maybe in a couple of years, we get new machine models that can do things that we've never heard of. I don't know.
Yeah. No, there's so much growth in this field, I think, that we're just kind of like at the cusp of it. But
Mhm.
generally we just want people to know, like, don't believe what you're seeing that says like, oh, it's so easy to become a sonographer, or oh, it's an easy job, because we don't want you to go in here thinking, oh, it's gonna be easy. um, if you're doing your research and you're seeing that, yes, it will be difficult, it will be challenging, and there's a lot of different things that we go through that people don't know we go through when we're scanning a patient. We're not just taking pictures, we're actually analyzing the pictures. If we see something like something abnormal, we analyze what's abnormal. Um, if we see something, we have to document it, we have to describe it. Describing things that we see can be one of the difficult parts of your day, because it might be
Yes,
something you're like, what is that? How do I describe that? You know? And there's
definitely.
so many factors, like patients with large body habitus, like your back can hurt, your hip can hurt, your arm can hurt,
Your
uh,
shoulders.
yeah, your shoulders can hurt, or your patients will yell at you. You can have doctors
Mhm.
yelling at you, nurses. You got to have a lot of, I think,
Thick skin.
confidence. Yeah, confidence and thick skin to not let that get to you. And I know a lot of students can probably relate. Even a lot of sonographers can relate too. I have had so many hard days. I think I haven't really had, like, when I have a day where it's like good and easy, quote unquote easy, that's like no doctors are yelling at me. All my patients were like good and nice, and everything went smoothly. Those days are rare. I
Very.
Very rare. I think every day in the hospital, working in a hospital setting, you are challenged.
Something's going on. Like there's
Yeah.
always something going on, and you're always being challenged. Like your
Mhm.
patience being tested,
Your
your
brain.
brain is being tested. Like, do I really know this or do I not know this? Like my self-doubt of since starting work has increased. I mean, I always
Mhm.
doubt myself, but then every time I see something on the screen, I'm like, I doubt myself. I'm like, when I do
Right.
DVTs, I'm like, is it really negative for DVT? Like,
Right.
I always need a second eye, and it's just
It'll grow.
it's
Like that's the
mentally
thing.
exhausting.
Yeah, your confidence will grow and
Confidence
stuff,
will grow, but it's mentally exhausting.
but it's hard, right? I
It
mean,
is.
I actually had an interview for another job recently, and one of the questions that she had asked me was, what was like the most interesting case you've ever seen? And when I had explained to her, like, it was the one where I saw a patient may have a uterus and testicles at the
Hmm.
same time. And I was questioning myself for a very long time.
Oh, I remember
Um,
that case.
yeah, and I was like, me and another sonographer were like, what do we do? What do we say? How do we describe this? We were probably thinking for about an hour with just that one case because we don't just like take a photo and we're just like, blah, there's the photo.
Mhm.
Like we have to actually analyze what we're seeing diagnostically and make sure we're describing it for the doctors. And, if they have any questions, we have to be able to be the one to answer the questions that they're asking us.
Mhm.
A lot of times we're always just like, I don't know, like you're the doctor, like you should know, right? Like half the time
Yeah.
sonographers will say that. But also our job is to know a lot of that stuff as well. We should know a lot of clinical things, why a patient's legs are red instead of blue, or why a patient's legs are oozing or cold instead of hot. Those are things that you learn in clinical.
Mm.
But we should know that as sonographers. We can't just go into an exam and just be like, "Oh, I'm doing a venous study just because." We should know
Yeah.
why they're doing a
Mhm.
venous study, or why we're doing an abdomen ultrasound. So there's so much to know to be a sonographer, and I applaud all of you students who want to go into this field. I applaud all of you sonographers who are listening because it is a hard job.
It is. I think of our brains as like an encyclopedia because the moment you see something,
Yeah.
it's one of those graphs of like, is it yes or no? If it's yes, you go this one. Is it yes? Or like, what does it look like? It's like, it's one of those graphs that's like you just you branch out.
Was that the post you just posted recently?
Yes, it's a real like things
I
that go in
love it.
my brain because literally that's why I imagine things like going on in my brain because it's just everywhere. Like
Yeah.
what I see, and then I have to think of like the patient's symptoms and all that stuff. And
Mhm.
the things like we can't say it to the patient. We can't
Right.
do anything. We're just like, okay, I'm just gonna finish this exam and the doctor will let you know.
Yeah.
Like good thing that I'm wearing a mask because I don't have a good poker face.
Oh, imagine before COVID, we didn't wear
Yeah, I don't know.
masks,
I
and
know.
we just, the patients would always probably be like, "What? You see something?" And some of them do say that, like, "Do you see something?"
Yes.
And you have to really, like, know how to communicate with your patients. You have to know
Hmm.
how to communicate to nurses, doctors. It's so much more than just being a person that pushes buttons and
Yes.
takes pictures. It's
It's
crazy.
interpersonal skills that you need to have, how to deal with difficult doctors, difficult um, healthcare personnel, difficult patients, just difficult family members.
Mhm.
It's that's a
Oh,
tough
yeah.
one too, family
Yeah.
members, because they
Yeah.
want to be in on it.
Right.
And, because of HIPAA, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Like, why? I'm like, oh my God.
You're like, "Wait, I can't say." But,
Yeah.
like,
So
today
it's a lot.
today I had a patient, I had a paracentesis, and I wanted to explain to him everything at first, and he was so hesitant. He was, like, so rude. He didn't want it done. He was like, I could tell he just didn't want
Hmm.
to do anything with a paracentesis. So for those who you don't know, a paracentesis is a procedure where you remove fluid from the belly and you hope to relieve pressure and pain and help them breathe better with that procedure. So I tried to explain to him, like the procedure, and he was just one of those that give you a hard time, right?
Mm.
At the end of the procedure, because obviously I told him at the beginning, I was like, it's your choice. You don't have to do it. I'm not going to force you to do anything. It's your decision. But the way you speak to your patient, you have to, with time, like you learn how to talk to them and stuff like that, especially when you're new. But at the very end, he thanked me and he's like, girl, you done saved my life. And he's just like, thank
Aw.
you so much for doing this. And he was like, I know I was giving you a hard time in the beginning, but I know for a fact that you saved my life, even though I'm not the doctor who
Aw.
poked him. But I was like, I didn't do anything. I was like, I'm just here to do my job. I just want to help you feel better. I told you you didn't have to do it. It was your choice, but
Mhm.
I explained everything how I did, and I told him I knew it would help him feel better, and
Yeah.
after you deal with that in the beginning, the hard, you're trying to get the scan for them done. At the very end, a lot of times they're so thankful for us and like what we do. And sometimes they apologize and they're like, I'm sorry. And, us as sonographers, we understand it's a hard thing for patients to go through. We don't know what any person is going
Yeah.
through as a patient. So when you guys graduate and, advocate for your patients and make sure that they know you're just doing your job to help them. And I think that makes it a little bit easier, the job a little bit easier. Because remember, sonography is all about you and your patient. Everything
Yes.
else is just an added like hardship. Basically, like the nurses, doctors,
That is stress.
everything else, that's added stress. At the end of the day, it's you and your patient and your brain.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That reminds me, I had this really nice encounter with a patient that I did. He came in, he was referred to this doctor who ordered this, it was a PVR treadmill. He was feeling pain in his legs and he had an operation back in his lower spine. And the first thing he asked me, he was like really nice. He asked me, is like, how detailed is this test? And I was honest to him. I'm like, it's not that detailed if you want to look at the arteries of your legs, because this is just testing the blood pressure to see if there's any abnormal flow in his legs. And he's like, then why did my doctor order the other one? I told him, I was like, that's up to your doctor. That's between you and the doctor. Um, I'm just doing the test that was ordered. He's like, then he was very frustrated because he wanted a test that can bring results immediately, like a very
Mhm.
thorough, which I understand, on a patient's perspective, like you go to the doctor to find out what's wrong with you and you want answers. You don't want to be going to this test, going to another test, because it's a waste of time. And it's also, and he's in pain. I was like, that's the frustration.
Mhm.
So he was taking it out on me. He's very frustrated. It's like, why did my doctor do this? Like, how can I talk to them to get them to order a more thorough test? And another doctor was observing me because she wanted to understand how we do PVR. So I can't really say what I wanted to
Yeah.
say to advocate for him. So I'm just like, there's a doctor here. Maybe you can ask her for advice, how you can talk to your doctor. And
Right.
he knows that I can't be honest with him because the doctor is there. So after the doctor left, he pulled me aside and thanked me for being honest, because not a lot of people would be honest with him. And because he knew that I was my dad's primary caretaker when he was sick, like I told him to just be insistent and all that stuff. So he's like shaking my hand and thank. And he's like, I hope to see you again, but with a better exam.
Right. Right.
And
I
he
know.
even got down like what exam like I suggested him to
Yeah.
get, because he
Yeah.
wanted to see like what's going on in his arteries. I'm like, to be honest, this is
This
not
is
a good exam for you.
right, right. And you're looking out for the patient, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we need to look out for our patients. Yes, doctors or nurses will say one thing,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, like you treat your patients like if they were your family members. And if
Exactly.
I tell my patients all the time, I'm like, if my father or my mother were going through something like
Hmm.
this is what I would say, or this is what I would
Yes.
do. I'm not a doctor. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not a doctor, but I will lead you in a direction to where you should, be able to make some decisions, right? Because
Yes.
we know a lot as sonographers,
Hmm.
and our patients, they do, you know they do appreciate that, people who are being humans, like
Yes.
put sonographers to the side. We're human beings, And we always have to tell them, okay, let's talk to the doctor first, or let's figure it out. Because in general, the healthcare field is so hard. And hopefully you guys have learned some things from this episode where, yes, it's a hard job, and yes, you're going to go through a lot of things, but it's worth it and it's worthwhile. It's like a
Very
challenge.
rewarding.
Yeah, but rewarding for you, especially if you really like helping people. That's the one thing we are here for, is to help people, no matter who you are. Our job is to help that patient. And ultrasound is hard. Don't get us wrong. It is probably, yes, more or less stress than other jobs, but it is still stressful. So
there is stress.
Can't believe everything that you hear out there on the internet.
Exactly. And I'm sure certain things that are on there is true. There's a little bit of truth to it, but it also depends on where you are, what setting you're at, who you're working with,
what school you go to, even.
Those factors make a difference, and it makes your impact of your journey. Like my school journey is very different from my classmates or other students in my school, so I can't say it's gonna be consistent.
Right. Yeah.
I can say that it's challenging.
Yeah. Same with me too. Like all the people that I went to school with, we all work at different places all over the valley, and our experiences are all different from where we did clinicals. So they have a different experience at their clinicals, and I had a different experience at my clinicals. And then all of us worked at different places. We all have different experiences. Yes, becoming a sonographer is hard. And then working out there is hard. But depending who taught you, the policies or the protocols or how they do it in certain places, one place can be harder than another. One place can be easier, quote unquote, than another. So yeah, it just kind of depends on what you want to do. Example, before we go, you can work at an OBGYN office, high risk OB, and that's hard. Like you could probably get like 10, 15 patients, which is very hard to do in a high risk OB place. And then I can do 10, 15 patients in a hospital, and my day will probably be easier than someone in an OBGYN office. Yeah. Or their day could be easier than my day. And, like they could have all like just checking for gender, right? Like 10 gender checks. I don't even know if they do that because I don't do OBGYN, but let's say that was a thing. So they could do all gender checks, and I could have all procedures. Like, every place is different. The stress load is different. But I just don't want people to go into this field thinking it will be 100% stress-free, because that's what I get from some of these TikToks that I see. And
it is not stress-free.
Yeah, that's just the end of our rant.
This is not a rant, I don't think. This is a discussion. A real and raw discussion.
Yeah. But we do appreciate you guys listening.
Yes,
I hope you guys know we will never be dishonest with you. And we will always talk with just real and raw. And that's the point of the podcast. So
exactly.
If you have any questions, let us know. We'll get back at you guys as soon as we get a second in our life to breathe, because we're so busy.
And feel free to comment your questions down below if you're watching this on YouTube.
Yes. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you on the next one.
Yes, thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey, SITC fam. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to rate us 5 stars on any podcast platform. Leave us a review wherever you can. And don't forget to subscribe to Lynn and Geselle on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and find us on Facebook at Sonographers in the Cities.